Hi, good evening. Assalamualaikum to everyone who tune in to the live session today, right? With Adriel. Today we have a very great speaker, right? All the way from France. Okay. The reason for this live session today is something different. I believe that a lot of my friends, my students in my safety line or even my training line, they're asking me about how you actually get yourself recruited in this most competitive age and competitive era where you are looking into possibility, okay, of talking about upskilling, reskilling, and what can you do to stay relevant in your industry, right? So before we begin, let's begin with the video introduction first. All right, if you are still there, drop by to say hi, to send your comments, because today's topic is very, very important or great to discuss, right? If you have any questions, you can ask any question, put your comment, put your comments at comment section, that we will address accordingly. And I will not wait so much time. Okay, we have a very great speaker going to share with her expertise, right? By name of Diana. Let me just introduce you here. Diana, are you ready, Diana?
Hi.
Hi. All right.
The sun
Okay,
got
how
me.
are you, Diana? Are you? Yeah,
It's still bright here. How
yeah. Okay. What time is it in France?
it's just up around lunchtime. It's 1 p.m.
1 p.m. Oh, okay. It's at
So
8
it's still
p.m.
bright.
here in Singapore,
Yes,
right?
you must have
Yeah.
had
Okay.
your dinner. I've just had my lunch.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Me too, me too. Okay, guys. Today's topic we're gonna cover is about 7 hacks on getting hired and what recruiters don't want you to know. I will try to post a question later, but before that, okay, let's hear from Diana about her presentation on 7 hacks on getting hired. Coming from experience, okay, coming from her own experience, being an HR for both Southeast Asia region and I would say even Europe. You can ask her later some of the question. Okay, without further ado, I think Diana, take it away.
Thank you, Israel. Thank you for having me. Um, I think when Azrael approached me about presenting on the topics, I think they would be very much close to our hearts, and I hope that it would give some light to us in our job search as well as our career in general. So, just a bit about myself first. Maybe with the next slide. Yeah, that's how I look like. um, so I'm from Singapore, although I was introduced as being in France, and I'll get to that later. So I studied in Australia in my Bachelor of Business in Marketing and Tourism. And then after that, I well, fast forward to 2003. That's when I started my recruitment career in Singapore. So I spent most of my time in Singapore, as well as I spent some stints in different parts of the world for work and everything. And then 2015, I moved to France. Okay, for the only reason that I'm married to French. Yeah. So, okay. So the next slide, we will talk about give an overview about my recruitment career in a nutshell, what it actually entails. I started out in headhunting in 2003 for several years, where I recruited middle to senior level management people. Okay, so at that time, we were looking at people who had the salary band of above 60,000 Singapore dollars to even 400,000 a year. Okay, so on average, I would say most of my roles were around 120,000. So you can tell from there the type of positions that were hired. Okay, and they were across industries: manufacturing, banking, IT, oil and gas, and so on. Then I moved in house, where I was regional recruiter at ERM, as well as internal recruitment consultant. What it means is that means instead of having many clients, I was just recruiting for that company. So you come to me and I interview you and so on. At the same time, I also played business partner to stakeholders, HR department, line managers, while managing the candidates. Okay, so in order to meet the business needs. So from there, that's where the coaching came in as a form of value add in order to meet the targets of closing the cycle of recruitment, having people on board really, which is very much part of what I do today. And that has also uh, been coaching has also been put into campus and graduate recruitment that I was very much specialized in while I was in-house. Okay, so with that, I hope it gives you an understanding of why I'm talking today, the different type of people that I met, the kind of challenges as well, the usual questions. Okay, so we'll start with the first slide for the day on 7 hacks on getting a job. So before we get into what are the secrets, let's have an overview of the job process. Okay, so it's very much summarized here, and I think you can relate to it. First, you have your job search. Okay, so this would be places where you go to find your job, whether it's through your networking or referrals. Okay, somebody that you know in a company that you say, hey, I'm looking for a job, and so on. Somebody in the market, or it could be on job portals, which I think most of us are very familiar with, like LinkedIn, or you might even go to specific company sites, okay, to get the jobs, as well as job agencies. Okay, the likes of the blues and the reds that you approach to look for a job. Then once you have identified that the job that you're interested in, you apply, you send in your CV. Okay, and of course we know what happens next if the party concerned, the hirer for that matter, is interested. Usually there'll be a recruiter there. They would call you up for a meeting, an interview. Okay, and then after maybe 2 rounds of interview, depending on the type of role, depending on the company as well. In some companies, some banks, they have 9 interview rounds. Some are just at least 2 or 3. Okay, and finally you get the job offer, where you will be signing your contract, and that's where your negotiation comes in, whether it's about your salary, about any other um, parts of the contract that you want to negotiate on and everything. Okay, and then finally you sign it. So I think we know what happens after you get the job, and then that's another story. Okay, so what does it take for you to get hired then? So we'll start with the first one, which is copying the keywords. Okay, so now what it means is really when you use the job description, you see it on the advertisement, right? So you're looking for maybe an IT manager and so on. But IT is so wide; they have different types of the network, software, and what have you. So what exactly are they looking for? You can be an IT person in the same company, may not suit an IT person in another company. So these are the keywords on the job description that you need to have on your CV or your cover letter for that matter. But do not copy exactly everything. Do not copy 100%. You need to rephrase it and make it your own, okay, based on your experiences, but highlight those experience more and to match what they're looking for in the job description. Okay, so the second hack is to have an edge. Earlier I mentioned cover letter. Now this may not work for every job application. It depends on the need. There are companies that practice different things. Maybe the culture is different. Here in France, for instance, it is almost 100% sure that you would have to have a cover letter. In Singapore, it's not always the case. I guess it's probably 50%. And even if you left that out, it's okay, sort of thing. Okay, so it depends. it's like a date. I always use the analogy of, a relationship, right? Dating. If you like that person and they sort of like you back, and you want to highlight more of what you they like, you need to give them what they want to hear, right? So if they want to see a cover letter, that's what you give. Or in this case, in Singapore, for instance, if a cover letter is not necessary, maybe you find that edge to be pleasing to them, to attract them. Okay, maybe if you're applying in a social media company, then you're more skewed towards something creative. Maybe send you a video of yourself, for instance, instead of a cover letter. Okay, so again, bring out the keywords and make it your own. Personalize it. Don't just copy blindly. Okay, because then that's not you. So the third hack that we're looking at is the format. Whatever it is, make it easy for the recruiter to receive it. Now, you and I in Singapore, when we were maybe teenagers, especially undergoing our O levels and everything, exam, we often hear that, when the examiner marks your paper, he's not just marking yours alone, he's marking thousands of others. So he's not going to be so concerned on a personal level. He's just going to grab the keywords of what you have written, your answers. So he's looking for that. So don't make it any harder for him to find those answers. Okay, so make it as easy as possible because he's got others to look at. So yours need to stand out, make it very visible, make it clear. So the type of format that you choose as well, this again depends on the company that you are applying at. Again, a creative company may use colors, for instance, but most others in Singapore, for instance, would be black and white. Okay, in France or in different parts of Europe, next door Switzerland is closer towards the Singapore format. So again, you need to understand who you're sending it to be attractive to them. So in a gist, make it easy for them so that they are attracted to not just your format, that they're able to find what they want to see. Okay. Next, 4 is keep a cheat sheet. What this means is, okay, it looks like on the image is a bit reminds me of when I was very tempted as a kid trying to copy in an exam. Okay, so that's what you do as well. Okay, it is in a way cheating in a good way. Actually, it only helps you, and it is just to remind you, not because you're cheating, you're lying, but really to bring out what was said before when you sent in your CV in your last job application. Okay, you might have sent to a few companies. Okay, you're not going to. I mean, you're going to personalize or customize your CV in a way that it suits that company, right? So if you send to 5 different companies, you might have 5 varieties, although maybe 60 or 70% of each of this is the same. Okay, so then you're going to be going to the market, you're going to be taking your cat for a walk, that sort of thing. And it's not automatic in your head that what you sent out earlier. Then you're going to get a call from that person and you go all over the place. Oh, what do I talk about myself? And it doesn't mean that you don't know the answers, but you're not able to sell yourself in the best way. So having a cheat sheet would mean that is that the keywords are there for you to talk about yourself. Okay, I'm going to run through this in my background, or whether it's mental or physical cheat sheet, doesn't matter, but you have those keywords that are ready for you to really sell yourself. It's about your background, your experience. Okay, what I've shared with you earlier is somewhat a summary of what I've done. So that's what you do as well. Okay, your skills may come in the form of technical skills. Okay, especially if your job requires you to be tech savvy, for instance, you might need to be aware of certain software in the market and so on. So have that ready in your on your cheat sheet or mentally, okay, as well as your soft skills that would sell yourself again. For instance, like I love talking and so on, right? And I'm in the job of recruitment, or I am a host at the museum. These are all useful skills that you can put across about yourself to others, and these are selling points as well. Okay, at the end of it, don't forget to give them what they want to hear, which is how you're going to add value. Again, in a relationship or on a date, right? It's not just about you being attractive to that person or they being attractive to you, but the other party wants to hear how you are going to be beneficial for them. Okay, eventually when you get married and so on. So in this case, marriage would be getting the contract, the job offer, and then starting work, right? So how are you going to benefit that company? All right, so we move on to the fifth hack, which is know who you are meeting before the meeting. Just like what I mentioned earlier, having when you apply for the job, you need to know who you're writing to. The same, if before you meet somebody, it doesn't mean that the person who picks up the phone and talks to you is the person that you are going to be reporting to when you work with them. Okay, there are different levels of people in a company that you may be meeting before getting hired. Usually it would be the recruiter or HR person, depending, okay, because different companies have different setups. Some are big, some are small. And sometimes they don't have a recruiter. The hiring manager themselves could be the recruiter for that job that they're looking to hire. Okay, so still, technically, at that point, the function is that of a recruiter. Okay, so you're meeting the recruiter or a HR person. Two is your line manager. So if you are an industrialization engineer, I'm saying this because somebody I spoke to yesterday was an industrialization engineer. So he's probably reporting to, I'm just making this up, okay, maybe the head of engineering of the company. So this is likely your boss to be. Okay, so he's I mean, forget everybody else, even if they can't make it to the meeting, he's definitely the person who is going to be the one interviewing you at least one time, right? Because he needs to know the person that he's hiring. Okay. And then, so you need to know why am I saying this? Because a HR person doesn't know technical stuff about engineering. They might have an idea, okay, but they don't know the aspects of what you do exactly. Okay, so when you meet a HR person at an interview, could be the first round or the second round, you don't necessarily need to go too deep into the technical aspects. It's not really going to make sense to them. More importantly, are they going to appreciate if you're going to say these things? More likely not than an engineering manager, a head of engineering, whom you are going to meet to meet. So HR person may be more interested in facts, maybe the operations of a company and so on, your personality, okay, your skills. So those are things you want to highlight when you meet a HR manager, and the technical aspects is what you need to sell to your future boss. Okay, so these are all what I mentioned here, different departments, different personalities and expertise. They all have different understanding of you, and thus reflecting on their appreciation of you, in turn hiring you accordingly. Okay, all right, so the second last hack is to send a thank you email. Okay, aren't we all always very happy to, after meeting a friend, it doesn't even have to be a date, we had dinner with them and so on, we go home at night and then we send them a text message and say, hey, thanks for your time, it was lovely to have met you. The person would feel good, okay, and also that would take you further in your relationship, friendship, or whatever. And the same goes for when you are, landing a job. Okay, and it's not, think of it this way, not just about pleasing them, but it is also professional on your end to show your practices. Okay, and sometimes people are expecting the other party to respond and so on. Focus on you. Okay, that's maybe that could be something they need to work on, whatever. Focus on you, on your positive aspects, that you are somebody professional, you also personable. Okay, so keep the thank you letter short. How short? If you don't know, always check Google different templates for different type of roles and so on. Again, different countries have different expectations in terms of their culture. But I would say in Singapore, generally we're looking at five lines kind of thing. Most seven. Depends. If one line has two full stops in them, okay, so two sentences or not, but generally in an email, maybe 5 to 7 lines. Okay, what does your thank you email contain? The following. Okay, for instance, okay, I'm just gonna run through very quickly on top of my head what it can sound like, while you can have a look at what it says: a job match, your interest, and add value. Then it will make sense to these points. Okay, so dear Ezreal, thank you for your time today. It was good meeting you. I think having met you has given me better insight of the industrialization engineer position that XYZ company offers. So you see, you're referring back to the job match. I especially would like to reiterate my interest in it, because I came from this background, having lived in France, and I specialized in this area, which is again of similar to what your company is looking for. And I think this way I'm able to add value to it, to you, and that sort of a thing. Okay, so looking forward to hearing back from you. Yours sincerely. Okay, so I think maybe I extended it too long, but yeah, more or less you get the idea. Okay, it was really spontaneous, to be honest. Okay, right. So hope that helps. The seventh and the final hack is to get someone to put in a good word for you. So you see in the picture, you could interpret it as two things. One is somebody's gossiping behind your back, or you could, well, while that could be true, you could look at it as somebody is putting in a good word for you, using your network or referee. Often people put in referee on their CV. While that's not necessary, or again depending on the requirements, the referee doesn't have to be on a piece of paper. Okay, it could be through your network, somebody you know there in that company, or through the friends. Sometimes people are related to one another, through family or to friendship and so on. And social media also plays a part in validating that, because sometimes you have on your LinkedIn your referees. Okay, so also prepare your referee on what to say, especially if you know them. Okay, on you're looking for this job, so tell them to highlight more of your skills in this area and so on. So with that, I hope that the secrets, well, no longer a secret now, would help you one way or another. There are plenty, but in seven hacks, so seven seems to be the magic number. So yeah. Okay.
All right. That was the first presentation from Diana. Well, hang on, she got one more presentation. We will entice you with all the information. Personally, I thought there's fantastic things, certain things that I also learned today myself. Okay, even though I've done some interviewing myself, do some recruitment. Technically, majority of us would be on the interviewing side, interviewee. Okay, but not many of us have an opportunity to be an interviewer. But this is a good thing. One thing that she mentioned about cover letter, right, is very interesting. And not many people actually submit cover letter. I think in Singapore context, I'm not sure. Maybe Diana can say later. But I like the part where she said video. Wow, this is something interesting whereby I have been advocating this sometimes. Maybe in future, we never know, right? In future, telling is no longer a thing now. You need to show now, correct? Telling is no longer a thing now. You need to show what can you do, right? Demonstrating what can you do. I believe that could be the new direction the way I look at it. I like the part whereby you mentioned the word cheat sheet. Wow, that's was something I never. If I knew, I would have done that. So where you
Not
keep all
the
the cheat sheet?
exam, so. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah.
Where do you keep all the cheat sheet? Inside your whatever your sleeve or something?
Well, if it works, why not? um, I guess as what you saw in the image, you just have the points there, or like I mentioned earlier, which is you can have them ready mentally. Just a few points, You talk about background, yourself, personality, your skills, and so on. What are you going to talk about skills and so on? So just run through that, and then by the time the person calls you unexpectedly, you're mentally ready. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
it
All
doesn't have
right.
detail. Yeah.
Okay. I believe I did this once, sending thank you email.
Hmm.
Only once. Only once. I remember in my lifetime. Only once. It's because the recruiter is very friendly, and I
Yeah.
think it's that she connected to me via email. She sent me. So I have an email. So I just sent her an thank you email. For giving me an opportunity to showcase my expertise, and for calling me for interview. That's once. That's once. I believe that is something crucial that majority of us, fail to look into.
Yeah.
And this 7 hacks a good point. A good point.
Yeah.
Okay. Hopefully you guys stay tuned right after spending our interview live session of with Diana, right? Well, we will share with you where you can get these 7 hacks if you cannot recall all the 7 steps. Okay, if you just tune in, you may just want to send your comments again, likes, and even share this live session so that everybody will get benefit from this, right? Because I personally talked to her, mesmerized by her information, her skill, the knowledge that she had right now, and she wanted to share with the connection with everyone that she knew. I believe she could add value to many of us. All right.
Yeah.
I think that we should go through the second presentation before I will ask some tough question. I'll be waiting to ask some question. All
Yeah.
right. Okay. Just let me share one more slide.
I know that the next part is, it can be eyebrow raising. Yeah, what recruiters don't want you to know.
No. Okay. Give me a minute. Okay. Is it PowerPoint mode, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Okay. Take it away, Dana.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so moving on, what recruiters don't want you to know. It certainly is, the behind the scene thing, which which now before we go further, I just want you to sort of take this as with a pinch of salt, because there are things that you might think, oh my goodness, do they really do this? So let's go to the next slide. We'll start with this quote: a good reason does not mean the real reason. Something I learned from my lecturer back in school, more than 20 years ago. Okay. So I think we're all guilty of telling some amount of, well, not necessarily lie, but to make somebody feel good. So that reason that we give them could jolly well sound like a good one, but it doesn't mean it's a real one. Okay, so let's start with the first question, with the first thing that what recruiters don't want you to know, and in the next slide. Okay, so recruiters look at resumes quickly. Okay, so I think I mentioned this earlier about looking for keywords. Okay, and we get the overall feel. Um, if I should repeat what I mentioned about, at all levels, even, when people are the examiners, they have thousands to mark the paper. So again, they're just looking for the answers. They're not really looking for all the flowers and stuff like that. So I don't have to. I forgot the statistics here, to be honest, but I think if you Google, because different studies have different numbers as well, but easily maybe 10 seconds, 15 seconds type of a thing to run through your CV. Okay, so if you're looking for maybe what you call a HR manager, okay, for a company, the HR manager must have maybe business partnering background, administrative knowledge, compensation and benefits experience, and so on. So naturally, this is what we are going to look for on the CV. There's no point of looking for some other things that are not there. Okay, so again, on your date, if your date says that he likes girls to wear pink dresses, then wear the pink dress, you know, that sort of a thing. So that is the keyword to be attractive to that person. Okay, so this is for you to know that they do it very quickly, and they get the overall feel from your CV if it is good, or should we go further with you or not by calling you and so on. Okay, second is jobs don't always match the advertisement. Uh-huh. You probably come to me and say, then why would I apply for something then, right? Now we don't know what goes behind the scene in a company, because a new requisition in this case means the need for a job to be fulfilled. Okay, so let's say if you're looking for a pre-sales consultant, which is an IT role, um, they need someone in pre-sales, and then you come in for the interview because they say, okay, we look for someone in pre-sales. In any point in time, this can change for them because of many reasons. What's going on, the politics behind it. Okay, so and suddenly they say that, oh, we have an internal candidate already, somebody from the other branch is coming, so we don't really need this guy. So you see that's in the negative way of the results, which is the guy's not going to get the job. But sometimes it works out because he applies for a pre-sales consultant position, and the role says they're looking for post-sales consultant position. And again, the guy who was supposed to come as a pre-sales just left the company. So again, the job advertisement says post-sales, but here he is pre-sales. So it doesn't always match, but it can work out well for you, or quite the opposite. Okay, at the end of it is also the chemistry that doesn't go into the job description in order to hire you. Because Israel mentioned a good point just now about the person that you sent your only thank you letter to was very nice. Okay, so that's the chemistry that goes beyond papers, that goes beyond job description. Sometimes people hire you just over that because you're nice or something, whatever that appeals to them. Okay, all right. So the third one is the detective. Now, I think with Facebook, the Facebook generation, a lot of us are guilty of playing detective, checking out who's who, what this person is like. But did you know that this has always been the case with recruiters? Okay, not to scare you or anything. It says here, I back channeled you and found out the truth. Okay. So yeah, there are back channels out there that recruiters actually try to find out about you. Not necessarily finding out the truth, but wants to know what more about you, whether you can do the job, but sometimes to know, whether you're connected to this person that they are not interested in, and so on, what have you. Okay, so just to let you know, there was a real life situation one time where well, not once, this is just sort of like summing up some people's experiences, where a recruiter themselves, who was going for an interview, okay, they got a call from their future boss, which is probably the recruitment director or somebody. The guy likes her profile and said, okay, can you come down next week for an interview, for face to face? Okay, fine. Okay, here's what I need you to do. Be prepared for this, be prepared for that. Get these ready, these documents, whatever. And then at the end it says, and I also want you to find out 3 things about me that are not on LinkedIn. And so then the recruiter presents that to the future boss in person, whether it was personal or professional, things that were outside of LinkedIn. Okay, so it just goes to show the sleuth that the recruiter is expected to be as well, to be able to find out things behind just LinkedIn, okay, about person. So yeah, that's uh, yeah, that can be scary to some people, but yeah, so be careful what you put out there as well. Okay, so next is quota versus being humane. Okay, so what you need to know is at the end of the day, a recruiter is a salesperson with a quota. Okay, whether he or she is working in an external company where every person that is being recruited, the recruiter gets a cut out of that person, or the recruiter could be working in an in-house environment for just one company. They still have a quota. They must recruit 10 people a week or a day or that sort of a thing. Okay, so they, in that case, to put it simply, it may not sound very nice, but they don't really have your they're not too concerned about your career as opposed to their own. Okay, of course, you need to match what they're looking for, but they are not too concerned about more than that. If you have a work-life balance or whatever. Okay, so they don't necessarily sell something that they believe in, because at the end of it, they want to fulfill the quota. Okay, so it is more them than you, right? All right, so moving on to the next slide is influence versus decide. Now, what this means is often recruiters don't have the decision power. They're more of an influencer than they are decision makers. Okay, even whether they are external recruiters, that means people who have many clients. They hire for many clients, or internal recruiters like I've been in. You're sitting in the HR department and the company, so you don't necessarily decide. You may influence a stakeholder, the HR person there, who again is not the decision maker, or the line manager, for instance. Okay, they can tell you, the managing director of a company who's a big stakeholder as well says, I like her, but why aren't we recruiting her? And the recruiter can say, because she's this, and I think you need somebody better. And he can go like, okay, all right, I'll listen to you, the expert. Or he can say, no, I know it's she's not the best, but I want her anyway. He can do that. Okay, so the recruiter doesn't have too much power, but can influence that way, because he or she is the expert in that field. Okay, ultimately, is the hiring manager who decides. So the next slide would be on delays. Now, this is quite common where we come across delays and wondering, I haven't heard back. Like a date. You like this person. Why isn't he calling me? That sort of thing. Sometimes it's good. Sometimes it's bad. Okay. So again, like a date, you should not hang on to the hope of that job alone, that sole job alone. There's plenty of fish in the sea, right? So there's a possibility that there is another candidate, because they're recruiting, whether it's from somebody outside the company or internally, from another branch or something. Sometimes also there could be a budget change, okay, with the market crashing and so on, not necessarily even having to wait that long, but that these things can happen and can change the requisition of the company, and therefore changing the objective as well. The team management all might change, and they themselves may not know what's happening, let alone to tell you whether they're going to hire you or not. Okay, and sometimes there could be disagreements with all these people concerned, the stakeholders, the HR person, and the hiring manager. Okay, so these are reasons for the delays, that you're not being called or what have you. All right. The next note would be, wow, okay, discrimination. I think this should be the last one, because I personally, I feel this is the most controversial of it all. And okay, so first is talk behind your back. Recruiters, if you're in a recruitment setup where there are or a department of recruiters, right? There is that tendency of somebody picking up your CV and talking about you. Hey, look at this guy. Look at his photo or something. You know this guy, and then they start talking about you. And it's true. I've seen that happening as well. Okay. So and it's not really our concern, this goes on even outside of getting a job, in everyday life situation. So it's just something that might be a little bit shocking to us if it were in on a professional platform, but it does happen. And then they also hire based on preference, like nationality, your ethnicity, marital status, and friendship. So let me just break it down very quickly what that means. Now we have seen where the boss comes from X country, and then he starts hiring people from other X countries as well. Okay, so his tendency of hiring people within his own nationality. And there's also the race issue where people are recruited based on race, um, in a good or bad way, because sometimes in a bad way is where there's lack of diversity in a company. So they some people, they just don't like people from a certain community, but some prefer that there is a mix to add diversity in the team. So because of that too, they want somebody from a certain ethnicity, right? And marital status could be like you know um, people who are married, for instance, if the role that they have in mind requires 70 or 80% of travels, and then there could be a possibility that you're being asked if you're open to doing that when you're married with children, or they even do not wish to consider you because of that. They would rather hire somebody who's single. Okay, and sometimes they decide for you, where somebody's about to get married. She is based in Singapore, and her fiance is in Australia, and she hasn't even made marriage plans yet, but she has started to tell people, "Oh, I'm getting married. My boyfriend's Australian," and I said, "Okay, find something else you can replace her because she's likely to move to Australia." So things like this, okay. And finally, friendship is of course like favoritism, okay, which covers all the other that we mentioned just now. All right. So with that, don't be discouraged. What we need to do is, when this happens, use the opportunity to sharpen your job search skills and learn from others. Okay, and eventually, having learned that, you will find your perfect match in your next slide. Okay, you will find the final slide. Yeah, finally you find your perfect match. Okay, so it's not always rosy or professional, but getting a job is just like getting married in that way. The analogy of it. So yes, so I hope that has given some insights. Um,
Lovely, fantastic. I like that presentation. It's like a behind the scene or no holds bar approach. I'm sure you can get away with it because you're in France right now, right? In Singapore.
yes, probably that's the idea.
Yeah. Okay. Before we even go further or deeper into these topics, right? We look into the questions. I like the idea when you always emphasize on keyword, keyword, and keyword, which is fantastic. This is what I will also emphasize in one of my training when you want to get hired, because this is important, right? It's about an alignment. When you have keyword, the same share the same keyword. It's like sharing the same, I would say that same
Objective.
consensus. Yes, something like that, right? X, you mentioned about relationship. Oh, sounds like you are a love expert other than HR manager.
Which one? The relationship?
Yeah, from the yeah, I
I think,
think it's true. It's true.
yeah,
About
we go
relationship,
through learning.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like that rather than an interview or getting a job. It's like an examination. Some people, they think it is like that. So you question me, I answer. You question, I answer. No, it's like having a date, and it's interactive and understanding what the other party wants and giving them what they
Mm-mm.
want.
Okay. Do they actually go and look behind the scene? It sounds, yeah, I know. It sounds intimidating. It sounds,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
that's why there are some cases that's necessary. And then if you work in some big American firms as well. They do it professionally. They have a third party to do it, and they might track your record back to 20 years earlier where you lived before and everything. But where recruiters are concerned, they do that in the littlest of ways, but they still do. Yeah.
Okay. Some comment from the ground. Can Kau, if I could pronounce your name correctly. Yes, it's useful, and I shared on LinkedIn and Facebook. Thank you so much. This is a good friend of mine from Australia, Andy Lewis, you have tuned in earlier.
Okay.
Hi, AJ and Diana. I found this really interesting. I'm currently looking to move out and consulting and back into FT job market and looking at directors in HSEQ, which is safety, a friend of mine, and his role. However,
Right.
I've been told by a number of recruiters here in Australia that I've delivered too much and have been asked to thumb down my CV. What advice will you give me as I'm looking to secure senior leadership role in APAC region? Okay. Later we'll answer this question. I think it's interesting questions.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, interesting questions.
Thank you for the question.
We will go to the next segment. All right. You can actually post your questions over here on the comments section. Okay, just let me put away a few things here. Okay, so you can post. Right. Actually, I wanted to share with you guys, right? I told Diana from France from just now. Okay, if you are kidding me, I think I'll just ask her to just shift her laptop and show you and see through.
I think
It may be a crazy request, right?
it's not really crazy. We're lucky today to have the sun, and I would say it's quite a beautiful day outside. Except we're still. Can you see?
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's at
Except we're
1 p.m.
no, it's almost 2 p.m. now. Except we still have about more than a week to go to finish our lockdown, so we can't really be outside. Yeah. So um, yeah. So we've got the sun today. We're lucky.
All right, fantastic view there. Love it. I'm jealous now. I can't move anywhere in Singapore. At least we can travel within France.
I can't be back in Singapore.
Okay, maybe you want to answer Andy's concern or questions, right?
Sure. I think there are
Yeah.
different parts to it, right? So, FT job market. Can I confirm what FT job market is? I can think of it as Financial Times. and um, and looking for him to
Director.
reply, looking at director HSEQ risk roles. However, I've been told by a number of recruiters here in Australia that I've been a little bit too much. Okay, and have been asked to dumb down my CV. Okay, well, I guess we'll answer that part first. We're waiting for Andy to confirm what he refers to as FT. I can think of another term of FT, but I just want to make sure,
Sorry, Diana. Full time. Thank you. Thank you, Andy. It's full time. Okay, Diana.
okay. All right, just because the screen sort of like blacked out earlier, so I was like,
Yeah, suddenly you froze. I was like, what?
we were waiting for Andy to give
Yeah.
drop the
Okay,
ball.
yeah. Andy just replied full time.
Okay, thank you, Andy. All right, so it comes back down to what we were discussing earlier, which is you need to know who your target market is, right? The target audience. If you are in Australia and they think this is too much, a CV or maybe what you're presenting, then you need to customize it according to that market or to that target. If you're looking at moving to Asia Pacific, they probably would appreciate from what I know. If you're generally okay in Singapore and across Asia Pac, you could quite say it's similar in terms of the CV expectation. We're looking at 2 or 3 pages long. If you're somebody who's had more than 20 years of experience, maybe a bit longer is accepted as well for 5 pages. I wouldn't expect more than this. Okay, so Andy, if you're someone who's had more than 10 years, 3 pages would be fine. I think in Singapore, as well as across Asia Pacific. different countries, again, I don't think Asia Pacific across the board is too different between countries, unlike here in Europe. France is very peculiar, in more ways than one anyway. And next door, Switzerland is again different to France, you see. So Switzerland is quite closer to maybe the Singapore context of CVs or even the international one. So in some companies, even they would appreciate you to have lengthy CVs and so on. So I think that you need to establish that first. Asia Pacific is no problem if, from what I know, is unless of course you're applying to an Australian company again in Asia Pacific based in Singapore, then it's quite the same as being there yourself in Australia where you are. But yeah, you need to identify your target market or target audience as to who you are writing your CV to. And as what I said, if you're dating somebody, if she likes you to wear blue, then wear blue, right? And if another person likes you to wear red, then wear red, right? So you need to understand who you're meeting, who you are writing to. That is your target audience, right? And then there's another part here, which is what advice would you give as I'm looking to secure a senior leadership role in the Asia Pacific region? Yeah, so I think because I would take it that you're somebody who's had many years of experience, and definitely a senior leadership position requires a good network as well. You can start with having relationships with leaders in the market through LinkedIn and so on, through your network, build your network. Okay, often if you see people get jobs through their referrals or network, than just somebody who writes through an online job ad. Even if a company might not know you, they get you through a recruiter. That is in itself, in a way, a referral, somebody who would vet for you and say, okay, I know this guy, right? So you might even approach some recruiters, in for example, in Singapore or somebody. Okay, I hope that helps.
Okay. Yeah, it's okay. I think later, if you have further question, later Diana can share how they can connect with you personally. That will help. Because I wanted to ask her a few questions, which I think is I believe to be important. Besides the presentation earlier. Okay. We move on to the first one here. Okay,
Okay, so
you can see my question?
okay, so it's on the private chat. Yeah. Okay, so what are some of the challenges you face dealing with the candidate? I think
Yes.
I can't really pinpoint to anything in particular. Certainly, sometimes candidates play you out as recruiters sort of play you out as well as a candidate. But I think in general, the thing that would stand out would be their attitude. Um, and attitude goes a long way. So I think this could be a great challenge when dealing with somebody. In any case, whether you are a student or is somebody learning something new and everything, or even a colleague, you need to be teachable. A candidate is also not necessarily teachable, but he or she needs to respond accordingly. And if the attitude is quite the opposite way, it's not very cooperative. So I would say this has probably be the biggest challenge in general.
Okay. Maybe elaboration from that. Okay, of the challenges that you face. Maybe wanted to elaborate on the things like the greatest turn off that you had your experience during interview. I believe you have your fair share about your greatest turn off. You look you know what, you just want to just finish off the interview, but you have to do your job, right? So maybe you want to share what could be explained in terms of turn off.
Okay, we've lost you just then.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we've lost you.
Is it okay now? Is it okay now?
Yeah. So what we saying?
Yeah, okay. My question was, what is the greatest turn off you had during an interview? Uh,
Oh, I'd like to think that I don't remember because I try to look at things on that could work rather than did not work. but but maybe I've had somebody who just walked out because of his attitude over something that maybe he didn't agree with, or just didn't gel well with. So yeah, but most of the times I could safely say in a good way that I don't remember, specific negative incidences, incidents. So yeah, but that one, may not be the worst, but it could just be one of them. Yeah.
okay, I believe this is important question as well for majority of us, or even for me, like used to be, right? The first, what are the first criteria that you look at when interviewing your prospect?
hmm Um, Again, I can't stress enough on attitude. So it's really the overall attitude, because and if you actually read up on articles similar to this, people would say, experts would say that you can teach somebody a skill, you can teach somebody something for him to or her to gain experience in, but attitude, you need to have that yourself. So I think that's the overall. Personally, I have coached candidates who may not necessarily have the right background, and groom them into something that we wanted them to be. But with the right attitude, this was successful. Otherwise, you may have the best person in on paper for the role, but they have the wrong attitude. We can't quite go forward with this person. So yeah.
Hmm. Okay, cool. So attitude is one of the first few things, guys. Take note on that. Uh, I could not stress more. Okay, when first impression when you attend an interview, right?
Mhm.
It could be sometimes a turn off to see that they don't dress appropriately, giving out reason. Oh, I'm coming from here. Sometimes I wish I could understand them, but I
Mhm.
always wish that they could take some effort. I don't know. Well, maybe you can just share. What, how you should actually dress for ladies and for men in order for them to stand out, in order for them to show their first impression.
So to show, basically your question is, how should ladies and men dress for
Yeah.
their interview? Okay. Well, the bottom line of it is presentable. Presentable. Okay. That's presentable. It could mean in different forms. The forms would depend on, again, the position that you're going in for. For instance, if you are a private banker, okay, there is a tendency of looking a certain way,
Mhm.
formal with a
Mhm.
suit, okay. But in Singapore, where it is 33 degrees Celsius, you're not really expected to wear a suit, right? So again, it depends on the weather, depends as in your geography, okay, all this. But it comes down to being presentable, okay. So it doesn't mean being presentable is wearing the full, but being presentable is really pleasing. Okay, so if you're perhaps working as a HSE personnel at the shipyard, okay, you're not expected to wear a suit, or even a tie. Um, some people actually go in wearing their just a shirt attire, or polo t-shirt, polo shirt even, right? But he's got it tucked in. He's presentable. That's what I'm saying. He's not wearing
Hmm.
slippers. He may not be wearing Gucci, but he's not wearing slippers, and he's
Okay.
presentable. That's what it means. So the bottom line is being presentable. For ladies, it's also the same. You need to be presentable. If you're going in for a role at a bank as a private banker, again, you were dressed appropriately. It doesn't have to be Chanel from top to bottom, but it still has that, maybe that Chanel inspired look, for instance. So just to give you a visual, okay? I'm not picking my favorite attire or anything. Okay, so so there, it comes down to that. And then some companies, not necessarily even an interview, some companies even have, and I've worked for some like that, have details of the type of shoes you need to wear. Okay, it needs to be high heels, it needs to be 2 inches, and so on. And it can happen. Again, you're not wearing slippers, even if you're not wearing heels. Okay, in other companies that require you to look presentable, it can be smart casual. If you're getting a job as a graphic designer, you're not expected to wear that sort of a thing the same way as a private banker is dressed up, right? Smart casual, for instance, but still presentable. The weather
Interesting.
needs to come in. Yeah.
So weather plays a part. You have to wear suit and tie to impress your
Yeah,
boss.
yeah. Because here, you see that here, in summer, last summer I was in Italy and I saw a group of men who I think assume would be bankers, and they were wearing suits in the. Okay, maybe that's expected out of them again, because generally we're in a climate where it is cold. Okay, compared to Singapore, you don't have that. And well, of course, it depends on the meeting you're going to and so on, right? But for interviews, again, I've seen private bankers who don't wear their ties because that interview is supposed to be very private. Their position is at stake as well if they're being known to be looking out for a job, for instance. So they may not have to dress up, in a glitzy way, but presentable is a keyword.
Excellent. Okay. I will take note if I go for my next interview. Okay. This is another interesting question that every time I receive this question. I'm not sure whether this is a good idea.
Mhm.
Okay. Hang on. Let me just show. Okay. Whether it's a good idea to actually ask about your salary during your first interview.
Uh-huh.
Or
Okay.
this could be a major turn off.
Yes, it certainly is. In most times, okay, let's put ourselves in on a date, you know, and then after many dates or whatever, depending on different cultures, they have different ideas of dating. But then the next one will be marriage, right? So if you're on a first date, you meet somebody, would you talk about marriage? Most often not. So
Okay.
not on first date, no matter how attractive the other party is to you and vice versa. So the same goes with anything that goes into your contract, your job offer, which is especially salary, you wouldn't talk about on your first date, on your first interview. Okay. Now, what happens if, because I always get this question, okay, fine, we understand we're not supposed to bring this up, but what happens if that question is being posed to you? And sometimes they put you wriggle a bit, like, oh, imagine your date saying, would you want to get married to me? And you go like, you squirm a bit, right? So it can happen. Okay. Yeah. So you answer it, but I would say approach it with caution, just like
Mm-mm.
marriage. Yeah, I would like to someday I would like to get married. Of course, if the right person comes along, as opposed to, oh yes, I want to get married. Shall we get married tomorrow? You know. So that kind of thing, right? So
Okay.
you can talk about your salary if it's being brought up by them, never you first. Okay, and approach it with caution. Approach it with grace. Yes, give some ideas, but not necessarily going into detail, because what you need to bear in mind is this is not the job contract. This is not the offer. There's no need to go into details of that.
Okay. So since that, I just want to rephrase or cover that. Still touch on the salary question. Since they have not even give you a job offer, should you actually state your salary? Yeah,
Yeah,
expected salary in your CV. Should you do
yeah.
that, or should negotiable or whatever?
Basically, you should not. I don't even put negotiable if there's nothing to negotiate. If you're not going to put anything there, don't even bother, right? So, but basically, don't put it there. But there are employers who are guilty of asking you to put a salary
Yeah, exactly.
see. So now I'd like to just make sure that what I've just shared is being understood, which is what I said earlier. If your date wants to see a pink dress, would you wear a pink dress? Yes. So the same thing, right? If the future employer asks you to put in your salary, you should put it. Yes, but there's no need to go into detail. Okay, maybe they ask you for your current salary, we'll just put that number, and then sometimes they ask if your expected salary, then just put a range, or
Okay, okay.
even. But do your math first, do your research first. What is probably offered, okay, in the
Mm,
market with that company, and your
mm,
worth. Um, but as much as possible avoid that. The people who are in senior positions who don't even have that necessity, and most often people who are not in a senior capacity are the ones being asked or putting their salaries in there, right?
mm,
So,
mm, mm.
there's no need to cut yourself short. Stay away from that topic. um,
Okay, okay.
you know
Cool.
and there's
Yeah.
around, like I said, have answer it with grace. There's no need to go into great detail of it.
Okay. Right. Because when you before, because normally during interview, before you actually meet up with the hiring manager
Mm.
or the on the interviewer, normally they will you ask to fill up a form.
Yeah.
Yes, you're supposed to fill up a form.
Yeah.
Then and the form will state that expected salary. So
Yeah.
normally some of those who I've talked to, they said actually you should put quite a high salary. So when you came into the interview, so you can negotiate the lowest, a lower pay.
Yeah.
Is that a good strategy? I wonder.
I mean, it comes back to what I said, which is really you're sort of jumping the gun, whether it's in the form of an application form or a CV. There is actually, by right, there is no need for you to disclose that. Okay, so you're not being asked to leave or something if you're not able to provide that information. You can always tell them that I think I'll be more interested to share with you my value and see what you think about that, and we can meet halfway on that. The salary is definitely something that can also reflect your value as an
Mm,
employer, so throw it back to them, right? But if they're adamant about it, which you can still wiggle your way out from there, to be honest, then you might put some kind of a range. And if that's the situation, like they said, oh, you should put higher, lower, and everything, and I said, well, let's get to that when we get there. Right now, I think its focus should be more on your skill set, your experiences,
mm,
and so on. And I would say again, this is very reflective of the type of position that you apply for, because in most senior positions there's no need for these things, and depending on the line of work as well,
mm.
there is no need to put such things before you even go for the interview.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Common things that you heard after an interview, right? Normally after interview, everyone is done. Okay, they will just say that, okay, we will call you if you are shortlisted. We
Hmm.
will call you short. My question is, do they actually mean it?
Okay, let's
Coming
go back
point
to
back.
the
Okay.
date, and the person say, okay, now see you, and then he or she leaves, right? And say, okay, I'll call you. But do they mean it? Maybe they do. Maybe they don't. Maybe they do, and something happens, in their family, they can't call you back.
Mm, mm, mm.
Maybe they might meet somebody else. So it doesn't really matter whether they mean it or not. Okay. Just concentrate on your, you selling yourself at the interview and striking that chemistry with that person. The right job will come to you at the right time, and I've experienced myself. I mean, I've seen people getting jobs, having gone through many rounds of interview, and as what I highlighted earlier, there could be changes in the company, and it took the company a good 6 to 8 months before they hired that person.
Mm, mm,
There were
mm,
some things that were happening in the company. So
mm,
did they mean it in the first place that they were reaching out to a person? Yes, maybe they did, but something happened.
mm,
So that's
mm,
not so much our concern. Our concern is focusing on how we deliver our interview, and eventually our work performance. Uh,
okay.
okay, and it comes back to what the date is like an analogy. As I mentioned briefly just now, there are plenty of fish in the sea. Have that mindset. It's okay. You're not gonna hang on to this guy or girl for the rest of your life before you sign anything. Um, keep an open mind to something else. Okay, but you learn from. There's nothing wrong with your interview skill sets if you've done your best. Okay, often we feel guilty because you said the wrong thing, right thing. No matter how right you perform on a date with the opposite person, the date, for instance, if he or she doesn't appreciate you, he or she just doesn't appreciate you. So it may not necessarily be something that you said or you did that wasn't pleasing. Sometimes the stars and the moon are not aligned. So I would place more focus on our interview skills, and then moving on and looking outside
Mm, mm,
rather
mm.
than focusing on whether.
Yeah, sometimes because a very big company, huge company, very established, call you for an interview.
Yeah,
Yeah, you may inside your heart you may want, oh, I would love to be part
yeah,
of this company. You see, so
yes, true.
so that reason why I asked that question is there is there the minute, and maybe coming back to your relationship analogy, which I love it so much, right? Let's say you go for yeah, let's say you said just now, like when you go on a date, right? Is there any sign? Is there any sign that you will get that job offer?
I think it's like I briefly wrote that chemistry earlier about some of the things that are behind the scenes, right? So you're gonna get chemistry from your date. You're gonna get chemistry from your interview. I mean, you pick up from there whether that chemistry was great or not. Certainly, if we're not talking about clear cut things that are like the guy doesn't smile back at you at all, and he just says, "Oh, but your experience is nonsense," or something. That hardly happens, right? So most of the time, people are very diplomatic, and sometimes they are going to show what they mean, which is, "Wow, I really like your background and this and that." Do they mean it? Again, it comes back to what you ask.
Mm,
Maybe they do or not. It doesn't matter. So the telltale signs would just come down to your feel or the chemistry that's being formed, but more than this, even the best chemistry, even all the best telltale signs that could be positive, that could say we want you tomorrow,
mm.
it's not a confirmation until you get to sign on the dotted line.
Okay.
Much like a marriage, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. I still believe you are the love expert. Yeah. But
Well,
I used to use the same analogy for my Facebook marketing. Before you can just sell something, you must be relation. I think it boils down to the same thing about communication, relationship. Before they know you better, before they make their decision to commit. That's the word, right? Commit.
because above all this, whether it's an interview, whether it's a job, a marriage, a friendship, or something, it's all about relationship.
True.
um,
True.
you know so that's why I use that analogy, because it comes back to that. So if you remove the label of an interview, what have you, so it's a relationship that you're nurturing or you're creating. So and that's in our everyday life. So if
Mm,
we
mm, mm.
look at it in our everyday situation, I think it is easier to understand.
Okay. Right, I got a few more questions for Diana because we are already exceeding 1 hour. Sorry, Diana, to take up some of your time. Okay. I heard this question from an expert. Okay, out there, who gave me this advice. He said, Azril, if you go for an interview, okay, it's work two ways, right? You need to also interview the interviewer as well. Is that true?
Okay. I guess the word is not really interview the candidate. I mean, you don't interview a date, right? So
Okay.
it's just having an interaction, right? Most of the time, the interviewer is not going to say, "What is your name? What is your date of birth? What did you do in 2003?" It's not going to be robotic that way. So
Yeah.
the word is an interview, yes, but what's going on in an interview is very interactive. It should be. There are interviewers who probably don't do very well in their interviewing work, but most of the times it should be just be interactive. So use the same thinking of talking on a date and everything. That's how it should be. So if you're going to ask any questions, don't interview and say, can I ask you a question? How long have you been working in this company? No, that kind of tone. It is like an interview. Is it robotic? Is it like an exam? No, just say, oh, so you're a HR manager. Okay. Where were you working before this? Oh, so you've had 12 years of experience then. Okay, so you definitely know this line, you're familiar with this line, and you're backing it up with a statement, you're confirming something. It's not just asking questions. So I would prefer the word interaction rather than interviewing the interviewer. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Talking about interaction. Normally at the end of the interviewer will ask any other question. These are common questions, right? Should you ask a question for asking question? Normally, I always have these answers. No, it's okay. Thank you. That's all. What was your advice?
I think we're so set with we've taken from our exams in when we were 16 or something in an oral examination, and we're taking all 30 years down the road. It should not be the case. This is not examination. If you have a question, ask, and you don't have to wait until the end of it, right? Again, this is an interaction. What happens if you have asked all the questions? By the time they ask, do you have any question? Oh, I think I've pretty much asked all that I need to. You can always say that it is not a primary school oral exam, basically. So if you haven't had all the questions, then pose the question. And this is one of the things that you need to prepare yourself with questions before going for the interview, right? Relevant questions. You're not just asking unnecessary ones. Relevant questions. So if you still have some more questions, what about this and what about that? What are your company plans then? Are you opening in this country and whatever? Okay, so he's not going to say, okay, is that all? Is that all? No, right? Or just interaction. And of course, maybe limit yourself. If you've already been there for about over an hour, maybe an hour, 20 minutes, then you can't possibly have all the questions in the world either, right? So you need to also look at the time that you are spending there, and then you say, okay, I think that's you've pretty much answered a lot of my doubts and my questions, so I'm good. It doesn't have to be like so robotic or anything.
Cool. I wish I have these answers, 10 years ago. During job interview.
Well, by then,
Okay.
you have me today, so I guess that's why you didn't have.
Yeah. Yeah, I wish I had knew you back then. Okay. Anyway, we already have reached 1 hour and 50 minutes to be exact. Thank you, Diana, for having for being the guest speaker, for sharing your insights. I believe the insight is valuable for me. Even and I'm doing this, not interview, this interaction. I love the interaction now. Even though I'm interacting with you, I personally, all right, I learned quite a big deal, fair bit from you. I even written some notes on my own paper, right? I learned something. I think it could value add to all these viewers, who those who stay tuned with us throughout the whole live session that you have benefited so far, all right? There was another comment comes in.
That's another question.
Yeah, there was a comment comes in. This comment comes from Facebook. Wow. Okay. You want to close? Okay. Question by Ismail Hussein. No worries, Ismail. Thank you for tuning in. Do share with your friends. Okay, if you think it's benefit. You have missed out a lot of things. Trust me, guys. You have missed a lot of things that Diana have shared. Seriously, coming from her, I can't believe that she shared behind the scene. Especially, I love that part behind the scene. It's really not so bad. Like I told her.
Stop asking the recruiters now on.
The recruiters. Okay, question from Ismail Hussein. Why leaving your current employer? This is a common question in any interview. What should be a suitable answer for it? Interesting. Yes.
The question again is, what should you say when you leave the current employer? Is that right?
Yes. The question they will ask you, why do you leave your current employer? What's your reason for leaving your current employer? Yeah.
Okay. always stay positive, whether you're giving an answer that's like asking you about, what are your strengths and weaknesses. Giving an answer to weaknesses doesn't mean it has to be negative. The same with talking about an employer, current or a former one. Always stick to being positive. Okay, there's no need to tell them about, the politics and everything. So find something that is substantial, that can, again, maybe, um if you talk about an ex, right? And then in a bad way, the next person that you're dating is probably not gonna look at you in a nice way either, right? So you have to bear in mind that there's no need to bring up something negative about the employer, but instead, how you are going to add value to the next relationship, how you're going to add value to the next company. So perhaps something that the previous company did not have is what you're looking for to give in your new company. That should be somewhat the formula. Does it help? So I guess
Okay.
always get in touch again, for further examples or something. But
Okay. All right.
that's the formula.
Okay.
Stick to being positive.
Okay. I hope Ismail, you get some queries, answers from her. Okay. No worries. Later at the end of it, she will share how you can connect with her personally. Okay. If you have any further question, I know that this 1 hour plus. Technically, I have a lot of questions to ask. Okay, but it will take 3 more hours to finish everything. Okay, I just want to end this with one last question. Okay, I'm sure some of you are looking for a job. There is job seekers out there. There's a lot of job fair out there. Opening up jobs. It's a good initiative from the government, especially. I think from over the world, they are trying to create jobs. But at the end of the day, before you can land yourself a job, you must prepare all this, presentation yourself, physically, mentally, your CVs and so on. Okay,
Yeah.
so to end this, what would be your advice to all the job seeker out there, Diana?
In order to find a job, I think we definitely is. We are in a challenging period right now, all around the world.
Mm.
Uh, the way I look at it is, very quickly, I would say this, okay? People have been very despaired about what's happened. Even, but this is, actually, apart from the pandemic, this has happened to everybody in at different times. Okay, people losing jobs, being retrenched, and so on. So answer yourself this, okay? Your next job, do you want to find something that boost your career? Is it something you to look at on your same career path, or is it the money that you're looking at, to put food on the table? And sometimes trying to get something, or to be on the same level as your career may take some time. And if money is more of a concern, then find something to put food on the table. May not necessarily be related to your career until you land something good in your career. Okay, but people are sort of mixing them both at once, so they're not they're sort of feeling very disparaged by it all because they're trying to get back into the same line of things, and that may not be quite the same in the immediate future, right? And in the meantime, what are they going to eat and so on? So identify that if you're somebody who needs to put like food on the table, and this is a very common thing. We're humans. We need food, right? So we should not be embarrassed by the fact that we need to survive on money, for instance. Okay, so identify that. There's all sorts of jobs out there that you can gain some financial benefits from in the meantime. Okay, so that should sort of help you diminish your anxiety on finding the right job. Okay, if you have identified, whether it's now or much later, the role that you really want to, and that role becomes available in the future, then all that we have shared today would apply accordingly, for your proper interview skills and techniques and so on, and much more. Of course, like you said, it will take hours, just talking about this. But yeah, I think this would be my take on what should be done next, especially during this time. Hope that helps.
Fantastic advice from there, Diana. Thank you once again. All right, guys, for you who have missed her 7 hacks or you just joined us later, she have in fact prepared something for you guys. I just put this link on the comment for you to download and for you to connect with her. Maybe Diana, you want to type in your connect, whatever, your email, your LinkedIn. How can they connect with you if they have further
Okay.
questions? You just type in the comment. It's okay.
I've got the private chat. I can't seem to get onto the other chat room.
You go to the comment. Okay, never mind. You just go to private chat. I will put that for you.
Okay.
No worries.
So on LinkedIn, you can find me as Deanna RC. Okay, and then here's the Instagram is
Okay, this is LinkedIn. Okay, I will just put that in the chat. So comment section, and this is Instagram. And yeah, Diana is very active in Instagram, unlike myself. Okay, I prefer Facebook, but she loves Instagram. You can check her out. Now she just launched a new IG called I'm Diana Mick Coaching. Oh, one more. Email. Okay, one more for you to connect with her and answer some questions. Okay, and Diana also conducted some coaching program.
Yeah.
Yeah, to assist job seekers. If you have any questions, you can answer. Right? Wow, there's many. Okay, hang on. I just put everything first. Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah. Feel free to connect with her. Okay, guys. Yeah, I think that's the end of our live session today. I wanted to run this for 1 hour. In fact, the whole conversation have moved, have extended way beyond that. I really appreciated it because this is a value. When you ask for something, when you give more than that, there is a value that she's talking about, and she have actually translated into her actions. Yeah, right. Action. Normally, when people say 1 hour, is okay. Every 1 hour, that's it. No more question. But she is willing to go beyond that. That's the kind of coaching that I believe she will provide to all of you or to anyone who wish to engage here to ask a question. Anything. All right. There's no selling here. All right. But this is just a sharing session. Hopefully, you guys benefit from this sharing. All right. Then we can stay tuned for our next live session with more topics that are gonna reveal and with more speakers they're gonna share with us on the experts ground. All right. Thank you, Dana, once again. Wish you all the best. Wish you all success. Any last word from you?
No, I think good night. We've got people in Australia and Singapore, it seems. There's anybody else on this side. But yeah, do get in touch. Certainly it's good to help one another, especially during this time where everything's sort of happening all at once. So yeah, I would love to hear from you back, people who want this room.
Okay. Thank you. I will end this live session. Diana, don't go anywhere. Okay. I see you guys. Good night and have a great day. Bye.